Okay, I'm here with the Republican candidate for mayor, Dean Esposito. Great to see you today. I know you're having a hell of a time with this campaign here, but we're in the home stretch towards the debate season. And now, since we're at a moment where I feel that a lot of residents are going to be paying a lot more attention to the race, I wanted to talk to you about the campaign and your vision for Danbury.
And Al, I really appreciate the opportunity to do just that, because we start off the campaign and we try to promote ourselves and give the voters an idea who we are and our background. But now we're getting into 1 month from today, tomorrow actually, they'll make a decision on who should be best person to run the city. So we'll start getting more into the issues. So I appreciate it at the time.
Yeah, it's quite funny. We were talking a little earlier. I started my reporting on politics and happenings in Danbury back in 2005. And ironically, that was the year that you first ran for mayor. Right. I remember being at the March for Unity rally, and Joe Da Silva Jr. introduced me to you, and you were the 2005 Democratic candidate for mayor. Tell me a little bit about your first run and how that all transpired.
Well, Democrat is the key word. I know I grew up in Danbury. I was born and raised here, as you know, Al. And in my family, when you're born, you're a Democrat the day you arrive at the hospital. But as I got a little older and started feeling, I wanted to get involved in the community. My father was a state representative, as you probably already know. My grandfather ran for mayor back in the 50s as well. So it was almost a family tradition to get involved. And Mayor Gene Erikwise was running for the first time back in the day when I got involved with the party. And I talked to my father. They asked me to run for the 5th Ward Common Council seat, and my first run, right? And I spoke with my father, who's all the wisdom I need, right? And he says, "Are you going to live here?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you going to raise your family here?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You going to work here?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, if you have an opportunity to represent your family, friends, and your neighbors, I would take it if I was you." And I did. So we moved forward from that point, and I was reelected a few times to the council. And the opportunity came at that point in 2005 where the Democrats were looking for a candidate, and I had great name recognition because I have a big family in Danbury, and we've always been community-minded, service-minded. So I decided to run. I had a few issues with our sitting mayor at the time, Mayor Mark Bellin, and I decided to step up, and I had some good support from Joe Da Silva Jr. at the time.
Yeah. And also, just to go back a little bit on your background, I remember you as town clerk for Spat as well, right?
I did. I was given the honor of that that honor came when the legend Tweezer Seary, Mike Tweezer Seary, decided to retire midterm.
Toastmaster.
The Toastmaster, exactly. He decided to retire midterm, which meant there would be an extra year left. And I actually put my name in for consideration through the Danbury Democrats, and they endorsed me for that spot, and I was appointed to the spot of town clerk. I did that for the 1 year. And I ran in the next election. I think Tommy Arcani was our lead candidate at the time, and I lost by 3 votes. So I did lose to a friend of mine, Joe Scazafava, who's a good guy, and we did a recount, and it ended up being 3 votes difference, and he won.
Yeah, every vote counts.
That's right. Definitely. I learned that.
Now, 2005, I'm thinking about the issues that happened back then. I know immigration was an issue, that the housing authority fiasco during that time was a big situation. But you also had some topics of concern that are still topics of concern right now in 2021, such as downtown. I remember downtown revitalization was always a big concern. And we're still talking about that right now. So can we talk a little bit about your idea for the downtown area? Because that was an issue back then. Now you had 16 years later, I'm sure you had plenty of time to think about it. So what are your concerns about the Main Street that you grew up in?
Well, that's exactly it. It's where I grew up. And I remember back in the day as a young fellow going down to Main Street, and it was like an open-air mall at the time, meaning that it was very, very busy. People, you saw your friends and neighbors downtown, and it was a very vibrant area at the time. And then things come and go with time, but For me personally, right now, I think to revitalize the downtown, we're taking initiatives right now, working closely with Mayor Bowden as I did as Chief of Staff, and now with Joe Cavo as his Chief of Staff. We were right there to try to determine how we're going to best do that. You know, the downtown, I say it to people not to be, hopefully not sound sarcastic, but we do not own the downtown. The city does not own the buildings, and we don't own them. Even the road is maintained supposedly by the state, right? So there's a big issue we could talk about later. But, you know, our motivation is to get these property owners to get motivated to enhance their properties and hopefully give them the ability to rent their properties, and small businesses and restaurants to come in, and that brings revitalization. You see what's happening with the Kennedy Flats. The initiative there was to, if you bring the people, the businesses will come and the support will be there. That is full as we speak, and you have the new development at the News Times property. It's basically going to be the same thing. So with those incentives, the downtown, the plan is to help it grow. We're in the process of investing a $10 million grant or investment into the sidewalk project, as you know. I know you're on top of everything else, so I don't want to keep saying that, but you're very good at that. The green is in development. It's basically way along right now, and that section of the development was taken first because we actually do own that, the city. So we were able to take the initiative and move it forward. Now we're working with the state to move. I think it starts a little beyond Crosby Street, down Main Street, right, and then we'll move all the way up to St. Peter's area. And that means new sidewalks, which we desperately need because we have heating from the trees. And with that, we were planting new trees. So I know people get upset when trees are cut, but I just want to ensure them that new trees are going to be planted, and they're actually trees that grow straight down the roots, so they don't push the sidewalk.
That's one of the things that I first became a resident. I went to school in Danbury in the 80s. I became a resident in 1991. I remember the first revitalization, the landscape and the streetscape under Eric West, and the trees that were planted. It was so disheartening to see the trees over the years mess up the sidewalk, tear it up to the problem that we had now.
It's a serious issue right now, and you know, luckily we're gonna address that pretty quickly. Once we get the COVID, unfortunately, it delayed a lot of things, and I'm not one to keep blaming everything on that, but we've been focused. We're moving forward with that project, and with that comes new sidewalks, new plantings, new lighting, and it gives it a better feel for the downtown, which will encourage the actual owners of the building to invest. And we do have a facade grant project or program in the city that can go up to $10,000 as far as investments in their property. And you see some of them are using it right now. They're putting new windows and new. So if the project was $20,000, they can get up to $10,000 grant for that. You know, you don't have to pay it back, obviously, but it's an investment to the downtown. So those types of things are really, really give me a good feeling that we're actually going to try to move forward on this, because I said and you said, I'm a lifelong Danburian. It makes me feel good that this stuff's moving forward to build our community and build our downtown. Yeah. And then I don't want to ramble on, but go. You know, we have some projects going. We've been working on the train system, as you know. A lot of times people say, you talked about that last time and it didn't happen. Well, it's been happening. We're behind the scenes. It happens every day. We've actually initiated a study program, in which, unfortunately, a lot of times when you're dealing with multiple municipalities, and we're dealing with the state, and now we're dealing with Metro North, and you know, the different train lines. We got the Housatonic train line coming from Danbury to the border of New York, and then we go what do you call Metro North, and what is it, MTA, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Into the city.
Yeah.
But so we have to have those all fall into place. The study has to be done to indicate, is it really worth investing in? It's millions of dollars investment, so they got to know. And it's going to take traffic off 84, which we talked about earlier. It's going to take traffic off 684, and it's going to be able to bring people from eventually all the way up into New Milford and Kent. You know, that's the plan. But initiating it here at our train station. We've already been looking at plans for parking, because if they come, we got to park their car, right? And there's a possibility of a big parking garage down that way. So the reason I bring it up is because if they go out, they come back.
Right.
And they meaning, you know, the people working out of the city of Danbury down to New York, but now people from New York can come to Danbury and utilize our restaurants and stores, and it just promotes more activity downtown.
I know when I lived here back in the 90s, I know the thing about going to New York is you never took the train out of Danbury. You always you'd go over to Brewster North and take it that way because it was always faster and it was always inconvenient. And also on the flip side in the 90s, I remember if you ever needed to go up to New Milford, it was always a pain in the butt. You always wanted to wait for that I don't know, overpass, bypass that they have right now. So yeah, it's good to see that there's going to be some improvements because transportation was always a big
and it
concern.
still is. You know, the reality of the whole project is, you know, there'll still be a line going down to, I think it goes into Norwalk and Stanford area, and they transfer there and then get into the city. But we're building, it's a hub, basically, a transportation hub for Danbury. So if those people do come on the train to Danbury to you know, enjoy our city, they have to have a ride most of the time. You know, so there'll be taxi cabs, the buses, and Uber is the one I was thinking of. They'll all be accessible from that point. So there'll be a small station set up there where you can actually get off the train, and if you want to go to the mall, you get a ride over there. And there has been talk about a kind of a stop at the mall on certain days because it wants to be an express line right to the city initially, right?
Yeah. Well, let me add a couple more times since we're free flowing here a little bit. We're on the downtown. So I want to continue on downtown just a little bit. Now the Democrats over the years of me reporting, let's say from 2005 up to now, have always stated that whether it was the Crosby Street development, the Kennedy Flats development, and now the new development in the Old News Times slot, that tax deferments should not be used towards residential developers. That was a big complaint. I think Helena Brontes talked about that, Gary Goncalves talked about that, and even think Sotero talked about that 2 years ago. Now that we've had some time since the Crosby Street and Kennedy, I think that's we're talking like 15, 16 years.
At least.
What are your thoughts on that thing? Do you think that it was good for us to use the tools in the toolbox that Mark Boughton used in terms of deferment to get those developments done?
Al, I definitely do now. And I mean, back then I had concerns about it, giving away our tax dollars to incentive for an incentive to build, and my thoughts were that those developers are going to take advantage of the whole scenario, develop, sell them, make all the money and leave.
Right.
And we're going to carry the burden of no taxes for 7 or 8 years or whatever the term was. But I think in the big picture and working closely with our economic development, Roger Palazzo, and working directly with Mayor Boughton and now Mayor Cabo, I see the light. It's a definite incentive for those builders to come and make huge million-dollar investments in our community. And I think at this point right now, it's a simple issue to be able to give them the ability to feel that they're wanted, they're coming to the city, and we give them the ability for that tax break to, in the end, it's going to be all good for that development and for the city. So I think, personally, I think that incentive is doable and does help and encourage development here.
Okay, and another, since we're on downtown in this area here, let's talk about the entertainment. Ive Street was always a big concern. You know, we remember Ive Street in 2001, to Ive Street now it's like a ghost town in some ways. And many people say that you can't have a downtown without a good entertainment area. People won't come downtown at night if there's no place to go. What are your thoughts about Ive Street? You know, what can be done to revitalize that street and get those buildings going again? It's kind of disheartening to see like 11 Ive Street abandoned or the old mannequins abandoned for nearly going on 15, 20 years now. And
you know, definitely we want to see encourage new business to come in and new you know, entertainment type scenario. But again, it all comes down to the owners of the buildings and trying to motivate them to do that. And for them, it comes down to the dollar bill. You know, they have to be able to subsidize and be able to afford the building and getting things done. With the growth that we were just talking about comes, you know, gives investors a better feel that may come in and purchase those buildings or rent them and develop them. you know, with the enhancement of the green, you know, we had some really good times down there as far as concerts and, you know, festivals, and we're looking for that again. Unfortunately, with the COVID, they've been delayed for the last year, almost 2 years now, right? But the entertainment district, and we're looking into the Palace Theater as well for more. The discussion as of right now, and I can't leak out any secrets, but you know, we're talking with the owner of the Palace Theater to enhance the theater back to the way it was. Instead of being broken up into small, you know, they broke it up for movie theaters, to open it all up again and make it a huge venue for live entertainment and plays and stuff like that. So there are discussions about that, but we have to be able to work closely with the property owners themselves to encourage them to move into the next level. Unfortunately, if we owned it, we could develop it right away and get some businesses in there, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
that's the hardest part.
Well, you brought up a topic, and in discussing, you talked about COVID, so I'm going to pivot off and down just for a second.
Yeah, sure.
I think, in my opinion, two of the biggest issues in Danbury, it's not education and roads, it's COVID and development. But COVID is the big elephant in the room because we're still in the midst of this pandemic.
Right.
You know, Danbury was one of the first spots in the state that got hit with somebody with an infection. We've been in the front lines of this thing for a very long time, and a lot of businesses have suffered. A lot of you know, employment has gone down, and it's a lot of hardships have happened.
Right.
A lot of people in this area are renters, so they had struggled to make ends meet.
Make the note, right.
You know, that's if you're mayor, that's going to be the big be the big elephant in your room. And I saw you came up with a plan to address it, but I want you to elaborate and tell me about your thoughts on that.
I understand. I did come out with a plan, a COVID recovery plan, that step by step by health department, business, and education. But you know, we have to address each thing as they come along. Health department, number one, they were a huge key asset to us. Luckily, we had Kara Prunty that stepped up as an assistant director to take the lead in that. And they did it. They got us safe. They made arrangements for vaccinations and testing each and every day. And our staff in the health department, I give kudos because they were there each and every day when a lot of people were afraid to go out. They came, they did their job, and provided the services that our community needed to get educated with this COVID and to get themselves safe. So with that education side, we're looking into enhancing, what do you call it, it's slipping my mind, it's the air systems in the schools.
It's HVAC.
Yeah, HVAC, that's right, thank you. The HVAC, and we can enhance that to even be better, purify the airs. And you know, those are the types of steps we have to take. And with business, that's the key right there, right? Now, the businesses we have to support fully because we have to get them back up and running and be able to, you know, survive. A lot of them took the initiative and built outside dining. And that was temporary in the minds of a lot of people because of the zoning regulations, and the governor gave them the ability to do that. Well, my goal as the next mayor is to continue to be able to give them that ability, because a lot of the small businesses, especially restaurants, made that big investment in decks and outside dining, and I enjoy it personally. I like to sit outside, you know, but that enhanced their business and got them back up and running, and a lot of them are doing a lot better today as we speak because of that, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And those are the types of things I want to work to ensure that those businesses have the opportunity to continue the progress they made over getting through this COVID.
No, see, since you're a chief of staff, you've seen a lot of things during this pandemic, and there's a lot of people who are, should I say, upset over their thought that the government is encroaching and coming too much into their lives, telling them how to wear a mask. You have to wear a mask here, and you can't go to this place without certain requirements. You know, how do you strike the balance between keeping people safe and not really going to the point where you're really
Violating their rights.
Violating their rights, yeah.
Basically, that's a good question as well, because you know, when this thing first came around, it blindsided us all to COVID, and we had to take steps to ensure that the safety of everybody in this country, obviously, because it was a worldwide thing. But we focused on our people here, and they took the initiative, mask, and then luckily the vaccines came out quickly any quick as possible, but they came out to help reassure us that we're going to be safe from this. And I've been vaccinated myself, you know, and I wear a mask as much as possible in a bigger crowd. But it's the concerns of the people. My personal belief is I wouldn't want to mandate something on you if you don't want to do it. I would encourage you to wear a mask. I would encourage you to get vaccinated. But, you know, and I say it all the time, this is America. You have to be able to make that decision. And hopefully, I pray that you don't get sick and that, you know, you'll be fine. Because a lot of people, they don't think they're going to get sick, or they just don't want to be mandated to do something. And I kind of believe in that. And as you said, as chief of staff, I'm stuck in the middle because we have the health department advising us. We have the state health department advising us. So Mayor Cabo took the initiative, knowing that there was going to be a spike recently that was coming up, and re-implemented the mask mandate.
Right.
And he gets emails every day. He gets you know, feedback every day. So a lot of positive and a lot of negative. But you know, that's the job that he's taken on. You have to be a responsible leader and do what your advisors say, think it over, and make the best decision you think is best for the community. Right. And I praise him for that, because it was a tough decision for him as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who say that, you know, the governor Lamont passed the buck.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was right, huh? He just threw it right on us, right? Yeah. And he said, you guys, you know, make the decision. Yeah. But the reality is, Joe was heartfelt about making the decision, because we started feeling a little bit, people were coming back, and it was, you know, it was lightening up as far as security against COVID. And the businesses started getting more active. And I got to tell you, our director of economic development, he's pulling his hair out, right? Because he's dealing with the businesses every day. Oh, we don't want that. It's gonna hurt us. But in the big picture, it was for the safety of all. And Joe felt confident with the advice he got that we should implement that mask. But, and as I said earlier, it was a tough position for me to be in, because I don't personally believe you should be mandated to do anything like that, or especially get a vaccine. It's your personal choice, and personally I think that's the way it should be. But and again, I encourage everybody to do it. I've done it, and I'm going to get a booster. You know, so
yeah, I'll be in line as well.
Yeah,
I'll be in line as well. So let's get to some a couple other topics. Let's get to the other elephant in the room. I want to talk, before we go to education, I really want to talk about development, because I'm looking back at Mark Boughton's tenure as mayor. I remember when he came in 2001, you know, the big thing was like the Union Carbide property was going to turn into a casino.
Oh, yeah,
you know, and he was out there fighting against that. But you remember what that side of Danbury, I think it's the 7th Ward, looks like in 2001 compared to it is now. The number of units that have developed in that area, and the amount of people that came into that area is amazing. Absolutely amazing. But that comes with a lot of other problems, because development, smart development.
Exactly, that's the key right there.
You know, you're going to be turning a lot of zoning land. What are your thoughts going forward? Because that monster over on the west side is just going to keep growing, you know, and as we go on, people are going to start having kids, and kids go to school, and I mean, more drain on city services. So what are your thoughts going forward with that?
Again, that's another one of those issues that you're caught in the middle, because you're promoting the city and enhancing the city and keeping the taxes low, and that's a draw for people, right? They come and they want to live here. The west side was developed as a huge development out there, all the way back out to almost to the border of New York.
Rivington.
Yeah, all through that area. We were just up there the other day because a gentleman had an issue about crosswalk. So I went out there with a couple of staff members to evaluate it so we can resolve it. But I realized how many, there's apartments, there's condos, there's a lot of growth there. And now with the summit taking off and really getting developed back into an actual working building with a lot of positive progress over there, that brings more people. And then a lot of the buildings that ended up being empty for a short time are getting filled with new companies coming in every day. Right. I think I mentioned it to you before that last year, I think it was, that we were over 1,000 new businesses coming to Danbury. People don't realize the amount of new businesses that open here every day. And that's documented, you know, you could check that. But there's from worldwide headquarters down to a little bodega or a restaurant or stores, and you know, that it's a positive thing. But with what you just said, it's managed growth we have to focus on now. we're starting to get, almost saturated to the point where, all right, where do we go from here? Because with that growth comes more traffic, right? And with that growth comes more students, and we provide education for every student that lives in the border of Danbury, and that's always been our goal, and that's the way it is, because that's the future. But we have to have managed growth, and we have to focus on, our zoning regulations, and not just because a big time developer comes in and says, I want to put 45,000 units up there, and it's all going to be good. Well, we can't do it, right? Because it's going to oversaturate the area. Mill Plain is developed into a really quality area of the city. I mean, that whole west side is really built up, as you know, you just said it. And there's a lot of opportunities out there for work. Jobs are being created with those new businesses. So it's a fine line. You don't want to push them out because you want to bring the work for our people, but you want to manage the growth so we don't oversaturate the area.
Right. So from development over there, let's talk about a little bit of development that we're seeing here on Newtown Road. What are your thoughts on the amount of development that's happening in the area? Do you think that we're being overdeveloped on Newtown Road? Or is it a good balance?
I think it's a pretty good balance right now. We got the state over there developing the road itself and, enhancing the traffic flow over that way. Because if you go out that way now and you want to go to Walmart or different areas, it's pretty congested, right?
Yeah.
You get up into Stony Hill area and it's almost bottled right down.
Well, it's almost like, the roads in that area are the roads from like the 80s
yeah,
and 90s.
Exactly.
And it's not built for all
It's not built for it.
there.
So the good thing is the state's taking the initiative to enhance that road and build a better traffic flow and, for more that quality volume of traffic. So with that, I think the growth there, right now we see a lot of small restaurants and maybe a few chain restaurants out that way. But we got Commerce Park out there. There's a lot of work for people with those companies that are there, and they're quality companies. So I think in the big picture, the mindset, any growth is good growth, but managed growth is better growth.
Right. That's one of my good friends at City Hall was the late Dennis Elkhorn.
Oh yeah, Dennis is a great guy.
He always told me, drilled in my head about smart development, how important it is, especially when you change the zone from one to another, because you open up the genie when you do.
And I give him credit because he took a lot of heat back in the day, when he was there, and real growth in Danbury started really flourishing, and he managed it well. He was a great guy.
Yeah.
Dennis.
So let's get on to education, because I guess your opponent is really drilling home about education, and he is hitting a lot of issues that's been talked about several times. What are your thoughts on the situation with our education system right now in terms of overcrowding? We see the images. My daughter is a freshman at Danbury High, and she tells me now, hey, Daddy, if I'm going down the hallway, if I forget something, I have to go all the way around because there's just so many people. I've been here over the years. I've seen the issues, especially with schools. When I first started reporting, my number one thing was going down to the Board of Ed meetings. I heard the concerns from the parents. I remember the modules that happened in the 2000s. But your thoughts on education? What
with the crowding issue, it's enhanced right now because of the spacing of the COVID initially. But I hate to say it, but I saw a picture. I don't know if it was my opponent put up and how negative it was. The hallways at Danbury High during class change. I went to Danbury High, and in '79, if I took the picture of that hallway during the class change, it was pretty busy. I got to tell you, in all honesty. But the reality is, we're one of the largest high schools in the state, and we do definitely need to make enhancements to ensure that there's enough space for the kids and be able to learn at a proper way. And we've taken that initiative. With the West Side Summit project, the Career Academy. It's a $100 million investment we're making there. Luckily, the state stepped up and is going to help subsidize that project, but it's an innovative new way that we have to look at a lot more in the future, utilizing pre-existing buildings. I went down to the south end. There's a huge building down there. It was like a diamond in the rough, and I saw the big sign, lease for lease. I whipped in there and I said, this is almost like a high school already, right? So I went back to Roger Palonzo, economic development. He goes, wow, there's people in there. And I go, half of it's empty, but it's an opportunity there we can utilize for alternative space if we need it, right? But with that comes dollar bills and numbers. But the goal is to continue moving forward and get the space. And we know that the education side, and I don't like to say that our side, their side.
Right.
I like to say we, because we're all in it together. But when you're looking at different projects, education did this study to see what the projection was for new students in the future, and we both know that it fell short big time. So that put us in a bind. But we took the initiative. Ellsworth Avenue School is being redeveloped right now. We took the initiative with the freshman academy off the back of the high school, which is another $100 million investment. See, a lot of times my opponent talks about the budget and we're not investing in education, but that budget is one component of the investment the city makes in education. The other side is infrastructure, and we spent $200-300 million on enhancing that, and that's what we have to do because we have the kids coming. But I mean, education in general is the key here for our future, so we're always going to invest in it. And I get a little, being that I am chief of staff, I've been there during the discussions, and sometimes people say, well, why did you cut education? We've never ever cut the budget for education. We may not have fulfilled their initial request for their, and I don't like to say it, but it's called a wish list request, right? We need to get down to a realistic number to provide the quality education that we do provide here. You know as well as I do, we've got schools of distinction, blue ribbon schools, there's 7 or 8, and that's a lot for a city our size. And I give credit to where it's due, to the teachers, the frontline teachers that are actually out there teaching our students and providing for their well-being. There's a lot of issues back there with the teachers and what they need and what they want, but the reality is, again, they were right there for us during this COVID. They're doing the best job they could during that, and they're providing quality education for our students. And the administration as well. Dr. Sal was a great guy. He retired. He stayed focused and tried to do the best possible job he could do. And Mayor Boughton and Mayor Cabo have done the same thing. We're all working on this together, and it's positive. You come up with a much better positive result in the end if you work together. So my goals are to start a little earlier and in discussion of where this budget has to be when we get to budget time. It always seems it's us and them, and we never cut. We've increased it every year. And this year you saw alone there's a surplus. Last year surplus. So to their credit, they're doing things right on that side, but we have to be realistic in the numbers. And again, I always say, my opponent seems to want to throw money, and is that going to make it better? Not necessarily. But the reality is if you manage the money, manage it in the right way, we've proven that it works because we've kept taxes low and still provide quality education for the students.
Yeah, I usually harp on people. I say, when it comes to your taxes, always in municipalities, I've never seen a case where it's not. Majority of your taxes go towards education,
right.
And out of that comes from the pension for the teachers.
Yeah, and you've seen the pie graph. It's a lot more than it takes to run the whole city, right? Yeah. But that's what we're here for. The goal is in the end to provide the quality education. We do what we have to do. Managed, the managed of the money. We don't have to keep taxing, putting and burden on our taxpayers. We've talked about it. I've just looked at recent bar graphs of other cities, and we're just not getting our fair share from the state. We provide a lot of tax dollars up that way from sales tax to the state. We just want a better fair share coming back because it's definitely not a fair divide between, like New Britain gets almost double what we get per student. It's almost flip-flopped.
It's funny, I looked at some of my old footage, probably from like 2010, and Mayor Boughton at the time used New Britain as an example.
Yeah, well, yeah, because they're pretty much around the same,
Right.
But they're getting almost $9,000 per student from the state and paying $3,500 into that student. They're, the local taxes. We're almost exactly the opposite. If you look at the bar graph, we put almost $9,000 per student of our local tax dollars into that student, and the state comes in with $3,500 or something. It just doesn't seem fair, and then we have to have a real push by our state legislature our senators and our senator and a few of the state rep staff step up.
So you don't feel that, like your opponent would say, that the city side should contribute more towards, more funding towards to this education? So you don't feel that on the city side we should give more?
In the end, if we have to, and it comes down to the wish list is here and we're back down here and we have to subsidize what we need to provide that quality education, of course, that's the goal. But in the end, we've been managing the money so well that we don't have to put a heavier burden on the taxpayer, our local taxpayers. So we're going through this pandemic and every day are trying to, a lot of people are struggling to make that rent, like you said, or that bill they owe. And that's where our focus is always going to be to provide the best quality education we can. And if it, in the end, we have to provide the money.
Now, as a subset of education, and this actually leads to a little bit about the overcrowding, is the charter schools.
I'm glad you brought that up. Right?
Now, charter schools have been somewhat controversial in this area. The majority of the state delegation is against the charter schools. Your opponent is against charter schools.
Is he? Because I haven't heard him make that statement publicly.
Well, I guess I'll be interviewing him pretty
say
soon.
he
I'll
was.
get him directly on record. I think he is opposed to charter schools. He's supported by the teachers union and the Working Families Party, and he made stances that coincides with the Danbury Democrats.
Right.
But let's get your opinion. I'll talk to him later on.
Yes.
But we're here with you.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on, what is your opinion on charter schools?
I think charter schools are, right now, are a blessing for this city. The opportunity that's sitting right out there for a charter school. You know as well as anybody that's been involved in this and knows about charter schools. They're throughout the state, and they're award-winning schools out there. It's not a fly-by-night scenario. These are the real term is public charter schools, right? In the end, they're providing good quality education in an alternative situation. And they're not like the Board of Ed and the charter school. It's going to be a working relationship. We have a great opportunity here in Danbury, as you know, with a local resident that's willing to donate $25 million to subsidize that school. And what does it do? It almost automatically relieves the space issue. Now you get almost 700 kids into a different location. That's going to relieve a lot of space, right? And overcrowding. And they're going to get quality teachers, like they always do. There's the oversight from the state. The money follows the child. It's not like we're going to take all the money away from the education side. That child was there, now he's going to be here, or she. So the reality is, I'm 100% for a charter school here in Danbury, because I think it's well overdue here. And unfortunately, for some reason, our state legislators, our state legislators are opposing it. And I just don't understand. I'd like to put them in front of this camera and ask them exactly, why are you against charter school in Danbury? Because it's a solution that we could use right now. It's a solution that we need right now. And again, it's going to be subsidized by a local donor at a huge amount of money that's looking for that type of quality school.
So the critics of the charter schools say that, I think one of the complaints is that the state giving money to the charter schools takes money away from students here in Danbury.
I don't know how they justify that comment, because the way I've been tracking it and the information I've been getting, there's the money that we just talked about that could be a lot more from the state, goes directly with the child. So it's not taken away from anything. It's actually just moving it from that building to this building and being educated. And that's my perspective of it. You know, the reality is, I know there's been discussion about the teachers and the union, but there again, it's a choice for the teacher. If that individual can join the union or not, even as in a charter school scenario, a public charter school scenario. That's what we're calling them.
All right, so to be clear, you are in support of
I'm
charter
definitely in
schools.
support of charter school, and I'll do, as the next mayor, I'll champion it. I got to tell you right now, Al, because I think it's a great solution for us, particularly not, I don't want to stay focused on the fact that it relieves the burden of a space issue. It still provides good quality education for the student, and it's going to help us with the space issue.
All right, well, let's we'll get off education for a second, because we don't have a whole lot more time. I don't want to take much more time away from you. Taxes. For as long as I can remember, taxes have always been always a concern in the background. You know, don't raise my taxes, don't raise my taxes. You know, with growth and with expansion comes more spending.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to strike a balance between providing services in the city without raising tax burden on residents, or more importantly, commercial residents, because commercial pays a lot
Yeah,
more
right, a
than,
lot more.
than residential.
Yeah, that's one of those things that you have to take as they come. I mean, obviously, again, I always preach the same thing, it's money management. I mean, we're blessed with our finance department. We have a finance director named Dave St. Hilaire, he's top notch. He's a really good finance guy. He gives us, advising us on where we have to be, preparing for the future. That's one good thing about Danbury. We've always prepared for the future. We have we have a great bond rating, in the city. It gives us the ability to bond at a very low rate. Almost, it was unbelievable. The last one was like 1%.
Yeah, it happened a couple of months ago.
Yeah,
In a meeting,
right.
The finance director was talking about.
Yeah, so, with that, gives us the ability to invest in it and utilize the credit that we have. And sometimes, from what Dave said, it's better to use the credit than not use it, because it builds our strength in the big picture. But as far as taxes, you said it. Who wants to raise taxes? Nobody. But we have to provide the quality services that people have come to expect in this city. And we're going to manage the money the best way possible without implementing any kind of tax increase. But as time goes by, and in your own personal life, there's cost of living increases everywhere, and we're going to stay up with that. We're going to continue to provide the services that the people expect.
Yeah, 'cause I think one of the big things, I think the re-evals are even coming up pretty soon. And I remember the last time a re-eval happened, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Talked to people over there who have property at Candlewood.
Yeah, oh my gosh,
really
right on the
hard.
water, yeah.
But for a lot of commercial, a lot of renters, landlords got hit significantly with the re-eval. So I think that's on a lot of concern on a lot of people's minds.
And with the growth brings the new business who are going to contribute new money to the coffers of the city. So that always helps as well. With the growth, they're gonna be paying their taxes as well. So it's an influx of new revenue.
Roads. Let's talk about roads real quick. Another thing that your opponent has talked about and the other candidates have talked about, and it's seen. Anybody who used to drive on Grand Street can tell you.
Oh yeah, there's a home run right there, right out. It's beautiful now.
Yeah,
beautiful. But it was a huge investment.
Huge investment. It was because of the drainage and everything.
Drainage.
But there's a lot of roads in Danbury
Sidewalks.
that are of concern,
Right.
and could use some attention.
Right.
What are your thoughts on the roads, and if you're elected mayor, how are you going to address that?
We're in, like this year alone, we're 13 miles of paving going on in the city.
Oh, 13 miles.
13
Okay.
miles, and probably last year was maybe 10 to 12 miles. We have an excellent public works department. As you know, many of the top guys there have unbelievable knowledge of providing this type of service. You combine their knowledge, it's a couple hundred years worth of expertise. And they evaluate each road A, B, C, D. And unfortunately, a lot of times on the roads on the outer part of the city are down in the C or D area, because they're not as traveled as heavily as the downtown roads. We get a bad rap here because we just spoke about it. You drive down Main Street right now, you have to go like this, right? And we call the state, we call the state, we call the state. We got to get that fixed. The road is crumbling. Well, you guys are in the midst of a project, and you're going to put new road, sidewalks, and you're going to tear the road up. So once you're done with that, we're going to pave the road, right? So again, it's pushed off a little bit. So you go up West Street. There's some of these main arteries in Danbury, they're in rough shape that, if we had the ability to go out and pave it, we would, but it's a state road. And then our constituents that don't know that, they'll call with concerns, obviously, and we take them every day, and that's what we're there for. But unfortunately, those roads we have to rely on our state senator and our state reps to step up and start doing the job that they were elected for. I know I keep harping on that, but being up in that office every day, every single day, I don't see those types, our representatives coming to the mayor, no matter what his party affiliation is, and asking, what can I do for you today? How do we get these roads resolved? How can we work together as a team? I don't see that happening. So And there are a few that have concerns, but they haven't stepped up as well. I have nothing but respect for them, Al, as you know, but if you're elected to represent the concerns of the people and the goodwill of this city, as a state representative, you got to step up and start banging on the door of the governor's office to get the funds that we deserve here in Danbury.
Well, you also have, to give a little pushback, you also have a lot of side roads in the area that definitely have, you know, you can use some repair. A lot of potholes, a lot of concerns on these roads, and the neighbors who live on these roads are taxpayers or homeowners, and they give taxes to the city and they expect something back in return, as opposed to repairing their cars.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, right.
You know, what do you say to them who are you know?
I would say that what we're doing right now, as I said, each and every year we have a plan to provide those services. But you know, Mayor Cabo actually was initiated this year. And you probably remember back in the day when they used to do chip seal in Danbury.
Yeah.
And it was, they put oil down and they dropped these big chunky stone out there. And then they throw sand over the top. Well, they came up with that again, right? Chip seal. And I'm like, absolutely not. No chip seal, because that's not going to be good for the cars. It's not going to be good for the residents. But they did do chip seal, and it's a new process that they do. And I was totally against it. I was crying every day up there. I said, don't do it. So they began it out on Stanley Rough in Great Plain, and I don't know if you've been out that way lately, but the chip seal went down. It's a whole new process that they do. Small gravel that they use. They put the binder down, they put the gravel down, they roll it out for maybe 2 or 3 days, maybe 4 days. Then the sweeper comes along, takes up the excess gravel, and then now if you go over it, they put a sealer on the top. It's just like a brand new paved road. And I'm like, this is beautiful. I went and told Joe, I said, you know, you were right, I was wrong. It's very good. But the reason I bring that up is because we saved probably $1 million on that whole project out there just in that, maybe more. I mean, and it extends the life of that road for 5 to 8 years.
Right.
You know, so those are the types of initiatives you have to take instead of just say, okay, here's $8 million, go pave all that stuff. And we have to leave the rest of the city till the next time, right? Now we take the money that was saved and go to the next project and continue that. And I think that that chip seal project is going to be a savior for us for a lot of those outer rimmed roads that the people do deserve, you know, they're taxpayers. That's another thing real quick is that we've been facing is private roads in Danbury. There's a lot of them. Yeah, you know, and unfortunately they call and say, hey, can you come pave our road? And I said, no, unfortunately, you know, you got to look and see that you're a private road and we don't have that ability to do that. It's not a part of the budget or whatever. But for me personally, I've heard that year after year, right? And I know those people are paying, you said it best, up by the lake, a lot of private roads. And they're paying high taxes, right? Yeah. So they deserve something for their tax dollars. So when I become mayor, I was talking about the other day that we have to build an initiative and a working partnership between the private road owner and the city. So instead of saying, sorry, you got to go pave that. I want to say, all right, let's get together with the residents on the road, get our professionals to evaluate what it's going to cost, and either we'll provide you with the material and you provide the labor, or vice versa, right? What's going to be the simplest thing for the property owner, because they're not in the paving business. We are, you know, a portion of us. But I really want to take a deep dive into that, because a lot of times we'll say, all right, but you plowed our road. And we had to plow because we have to keep it open for emergency services, right? So unfortunately, some roads are not kept up to snuff as well as they should be by the property or the property owners on that road. So we have to do it. We got to be able to get a police car, an ambulance, or a fire truck. Of course. So we do it. And but then they say, well, you committed to it. You got to keep, you know, you got to pave it now. And that's not necessarily true. But I guess the point I'm trying to get to is that as the next mayor, I want to really evaluate, and I don't want to be able to look you in the eye again after how many years to say, sorry, I can't help you. Right. When you just went downstairs on the second floor and dropped a big check for your taxes, right? Or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But you're paying your fair share and you deserve some help. And that's what I'm looking forward to do.
Well, pivot just a small bit off of roads. One more topic real quick. Infrastructure. I know your opponent talked about infrastructure, and One of the persons that I can remember the most over my years of watching politics at City Hall was Margaret Mitchell.
Oh, yeah, she's great.
The witch of the East Ditch.
Yeah, the witch of the ditch, but she, if you talk to her one-on-one, very passionate, very good person. I knew her because she's in the 5th Ward, I think the 5th's on that side, and I represented the 5th Ward as a young councilman.
Also, well, the flooding that happens in certain parts of the area, you can tell it you know where it's happening on Main Street, down by the East
right in front of her.
Walgreens, that area over there, or Federal Road,
West
or
Street.
the mall, West Street, over by
under the trestle,
under the bridge where everybody hits.
Yeah,
see the sign.
rip the top off. Right.
What are your concerns about that? Your opponent says that that the neglect is one of the reasons why we're having these problems.
Well, again, that all comes down to having the ability to dredge the river, because now you're talking DEEP and a lot of certain guidelines that we have to go through to get there. My personal belief is we have to move forward even more than ever. And again, to his credit, Joe Cavo has stepped up working with the Public Works Department. You could go there probably right now today and see that they're working on the West Street project, as the river comes right down and goes like that around. So it almost forces itself up and over into under the bridge.
Yeah.
Well, this right now, in this past week, they've dredged that whole area. There were trees in there. There was dumpsters in there that got knocked in through the big storm.
Yeah.
But that was recent. But the reality is that they dredged it a little deeper. Now, if you go down there onto West Street, like where Amigos is, you look over the bridge. That's flowing, baby. It's flowing good. So that's what we want. Those simple things to make the water flow easier, it really resolves a lot of the problem. Right. The biggest one that we face, and lately it's been even worse, is on Main Street, down by the Elmwood Park across from the old courthouse, right in that front of that section.
Yes.
Well, they've been evaluating that, and it's always called the East Ditch problem, and they were talking, you got to get the Army Corps of Engineers, and it's going to be $25 million to resolve that problem. So a lot of times people get scared off, but to get scared off just means delaying the solution.
Right.
And so we've taken the initiative. They're utilizing new technology. They shot down through the pipes, and they did find a main artery pipe, I'll call it, that was so old that it collapsed, and it wasn't really even working. So we're looking at a project where it would bypass that section of pipe and really relieve the problem there. And again, we have to go through the state, get the state's permission, and it always turns into a little bit longer project than you really want. I say, get the truck down there, dig it up, and put the pipe in, right?
And people need to know that government is not a fad. It's a lot of moving parts to it.
And especially when there's layers, like municipal, then state, and then federal, and there's all guidelines all the way through, or restrictions even, but and again, Joe Cavo, who's a mechanic by trade, he says, let's pump it out. We'll get a big pump and pump it off of there. And that was a really good idea, right? Because it could be diverted into another drain scenario and get it out. But I think we're on the path to a real solution there without a $25 million price tag.
Well, that's good for the taxpayers then.
Thank God.
Well, look, I don't want to I want to wrap things up a little because I don't want to take too much more of your time, but you're running for mayor for the second time.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the race?
Well, I feel really good. I'm 20 years older. I'm a little bit more settled in, and I've been out campaigning. As I said, we've done hundreds of doors, not door to door, and I'm getting a really, really good feedback from the actual voter. They're telling me that I've been involved in the last 2 administrations, Boughton and Cavo, and things are moving forward. We're in a solid moving forward progress, and I've been key to that. So I think the people feel confident that right now, especially hopefully coming out of the COVID, that they need a good solid leadership, which is I bring to this campaign with 30 years experience, and solid leadership with a voice for the people. Because my opponent, he's been on the council, as you know, for 20 months now, and I'm no disrespect, but he said maybe 10 words, and that you can look up as well. It's all documented. And a few times, most of the time, it was no. And he voted against certain projects that he seems to praise now, and he condemns the I don't know if he was 100% on board with the charter school or the academy, you know, the
Career Academy.
Career Academy, I'm sorry. Yeah, but he hasn't said much. And now, when I was elected, and you were back there at the time, I was a councilman, and my goal was to get elected to be the voice of the people. You know, so the people expect you to get up there. You can't just say no, and then don't come up with an alternative solution, right? I mean, to me, it's more of a political posturing for him. But he's a decent guy that I don't really know that well, but I really believe that with my experience and my dedication to this city, being a lifelong, you know, born and raised here, I'm the right candidate at the right time.
All right, well, look, thank you very much for all your time. I really, really appreciate it. Again, it feels like it's a full circle thing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You're the first person I ever followed in politics in Danbury, and now we're here all these years later, a little grayer, a little older.
Yeah,
hopefully a little
that's all right. We're still here, though, right?
Yeah.
That's the good part.
Thing.
And I just want to thank you for all you do, because, you know, everybody knows Al Robinson, and that he's focused on bringing the message to the people and what's really happening to this city. And we need that, especially now with the media that we have, and the coverage is not as well as it had been in the past. You bring the truth out there so the people that live in this city know what's really happening.
I really, really appreciate that.
Seriously.
I try my best to, I have an opinion on certain matters, but I try to give people as much information to come to their own conclusions.
Exactly. That's what the people need, a true, honest view of what's really happening here. And, you know, if I'm making a mistake, you're going to call me out on it, and I know it. And that's good.
If you know Mark, you know
Yes, I do.
I don't have a problem.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That just makes us better.
No, we're all in this together because we all live here together. We all loved our city, and that's, in the end, it's all about our city. So thank you so much for all your time.
Thank you again. I really appreciate being able to speak with you.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.